There are things you are never meant to know, not because you are unworthy, not because you are incapable, but because knowledge is power, and those who control knowledge control everything. You have been educated, but not enlightened. You have been informed, but not empowered. You have been given just enough truth to function in the system, but never enough to transcend it. This is not an accident. This is design. For centuries, millennia even, there has been knowledge kept behind closed doors, in mystery schools, in secret societies, in oral traditions passed only to initiates who proved themselves worthy, not worthy in terms of status or wealth, but worthy in terms of readiness, the ability to hold truth without weaponizing it, the maturity to know without corrupting. But something has shifted. The veils are thinning. The gates that were once guarded are cracking open, and knowledge that was hidden is beginning to leak into the collective consciousness. This is one of those leaks, and you found it for a reason. The Wildwood mysteries are not new. They are ancient, older than the religions you were raised with, deeper than the science you were taught. They are the fundamental truths about the nature of reality, consciousness, power, and the human potential that has been systematically concealed from the masses. Why? Because if you knew what you are truly capable of, if you understood how reality actually works, if you realized the power dormant within you, you would be impossible to control, impossible to manipulate, impossible to keep small, obedient, and dependent. So, the knowledge was hidden, encoded in myths and fairy tales, buried in symbols only the initiated could decode, dismissed as superstition, fantasy, or the ravings of mystics who couldn't be trusted to understand the real world. But you sense it, don't you? You have always sensed it. The feeling that there is more, that the official story is incomplete, that behind the curtain of consensus reality lies something profound, something powerful, something true. You are right. There is. And you are about to remember it, not learn it for the first time. Though it may feel that way, but remember it. Because this knowledge is not external. It is not something I am giving you. It is something you have always carried in the deepest layers of your being, waiting for the moment you were ready to access it. That moment is now. What you are about to hear may challenge everything you believe. It may contradict the authorities you have trusted, the institutions you have relied upon, the worldview you have constructed to make sense of your life. And that is exactly why it was hidden. But truth does not need your belief to be true. It simply is. And when you encounter it, really encounter it, something inside you recognizes it. Not because it is logical or provable, but because it resonates. It feels like coming home to a place you never knew you left. So, breathe now. Open yourself. And prepare to remember what they spent centuries making sure you would forget. The Wildwood mysteries are not for the faint of heart. They are not for those who prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. But you are here, which means you are ready. The door is open, and you are about to walk through it. Chapter 1. The First Mystery. Reality is not what you think. Let me start with the most fundamental truth, the one upon which all the other mysteries rest. The reality you perceive is not objective. It is not fixed. It is not happening to you. It is happening through you. You have been taught that the world is solid, material, independent of your observation, that you are a small, separate self moving through a pre-existing universe that would continue exactly as it is, whether you existed or not. This is the foundational lie, and every other form of control, every system of limitation is built upon it. The wildwood mysteries, the ancient teachings that were encoded in nature worship, in shamanic practices, in the mystic traditions of every culture, have always known the truth. Consciousness is primary, matter is secondary. And the observer does not simply witness reality. The observer creates it. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Quantum mechanics has proven what the mystics have always taught. Particles exist in a state of superposition, all possibilities simultaneously, until the moment they are observed. And it is the act of observation that collapses the wave function, that determines which possibility becomes manifest. You are not a passive observer in a mechanical universe. You are an active participant in a conscious, responsive, living field of infinite potential. But you were not taught this. You were taught the opposite. You were taught that you are powerless, subject to forces beyond your control, that life happens to you, and your job is simply to react, to cope, to survive. Why? Because people who believe they are powerless, not because it is true, but because belief shapes reality. And a population that believes in its own powerlessness is easy to govern, easy to exploit, easy to keep contained. The wildwood mysteries teach that the world you see is a mirror, not metaphorically, but literally. The external reality you experience is a projection of your internal state, your beliefs, your emotions, your expectations, your consciousness. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. This is law, not wishful thinking, not positive psychology, but the fundamental mechanics of a reality that is far more fluid, far more responsive, far more magical than you have been allowed to believe. The ancient Druids understood this. They knew that the trees, the stones, the rivers, all of it was conscious, responsive, communicative. They did not worship nature as something separate. They recognized nature as a living extension of the same consciousness that flows through them. And when you approach reality from that knowing, when you understand that everything is interconnected through the field of consciousness, you begin to see synchronicities, patterns, messages, the universe speaking to you in a language older than words. But this knowledge was dangerous to empires, to hierarchies, to anyone who sought to control the masses. Because once people understand that reality is participatory, that they are not victims but creators, the entire structure of imposed authority crumbles. So the knowledge was hidden. Mystery schools arose, not to hoard the truth out of greed, but to protect it from those who would use it for domination. Initiates were tested, not for intellectual understanding, but for ethical maturity, for the wisdom to wield power without abusing it. And gradually, as religions became institutionalized, as science became materialistic, as education became standardized, the truth was replaced with a story. The story of separation, of powerlessness, of a dead mechanical universe indifferent to your existence. You were taught this story so well that you forgot it was a story. You took it as fact. And in doing so, you gave away your power. But you can take it back. Right now. In this moment. Simply by recognizing the truth. Reality is not happening to you. It is happening as you. You are not a separate observer. You are the consciousness through which this entire experience is arising. Look around right now. What you see is not out there. It is an interpretation constructed by your brain, filtered through your beliefs, colored by your expectations. Change those, and what you see changes. This is the first Wildwood mystery, the foundation upon which everything else is built. You are not powerless. You never were. You were simply taught to believe you were, and that belief became your experience. But now you know, and knowing changes everything. The world is not solid. It is not fixed. It is a field of infinite possibility, waiting for your consciousness to shape it into form. And the moment you truly understand this, not just intellectually but experientially, the entire game changes. You stop being a victim. You start being a creator. And the reality you once thought was immovable begins to bend, shift, and respond to the truth of what you are, infinite consciousness, having a temporary human experience. This is what they hid from you. This is the knowledge that was kept behind locked doors, whispered only in sacred groves, encoded in symbols meant to hide it from the unready. But you are ready now, and the first mystery has been revealed. Reality is not what you think. It is what you create, and you are far more powerful than you have ever been allowed to imagine. Chapter 2. The second mystery. You have more than 5 senses. You have been taught that you have 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. And anything beyond that is either imagination, delusion, or the realm of charlatans and frauds. This is the second great concealment. The truth known to every mystery school, every shamanic tradition, every lineage of mystics and seers is this: you have senses far beyond the physical 5, senses that perceive energy, intention, consciousness itself, senses that allow you to read the invisible currents of reality, to feel what is coming before it arrives, to know truth without evidence. You call them extrasensory perception, intuition, gut feeling, sixth sense. But these are not anomalies. They are not rare gifts possessed by special people. They are natural capacities that every human being has, capacities that have been systematically atrophied through disuse, dismissed through ridicule, and suppressed through education. Because if you knew you could sense beyond the 5 physical senses, if you knew you could perceive energy fields, read emotions at a distance, feel the truth beneath words, you would be far harder to lie to, far harder to deceive, far harder to control. The Wildwood mysteries teach that you are not just a physical body. You are a multidimensional being with layers of perception that extend far beyond the material realm. You have an energetic body. Mystics called it the aura, the subtle body, the luminous egg. And you perceive through it constantly, though you may not consciously recognize it. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt tension even though everyone was smiling? That is your energetic perception. Have you ever met someone and instantly felt distrust or attraction with no logical reason? That is your energetic perception. Have you ever known the phone was going to ring before it did, or thought of someone moments before they contacted you? That is your expanded senses at work. But you were taught to dismiss these experiences, to rationalize them away. It's just coincidence, just imagination, just nerves. No, it is your natural perceptive capacity, trying to function despite years of being told It does not exist. Indigenous peoples never lost this. They navigate by feeling the land. They hunt by sensing the presence of animals before seeing them. They diagnose illness by reading energy fields. They communicate across distances without technology, through what Western science dismissively calls telepathy, but is simply the natural function of consciousness unbound by the illusion of separation. The ancient mystery schools trained these capacities deliberately. Students learned to see auras, to sense subtle energies, to travel in consciousness beyond the body, not as supernatural abilities, but as natural extensions of human perception that had been allowed to develop rather than suppressed. And it worked. The adepts could diagnose disease by looking at the energy field. They could read the intentions of others. They could perceive events at a distance. They could navigate non-physical realms as easily as you navigate your living room. But this knowledge was dangerous. To kings who ruled through deception, to priests who claimed exclusive access to the divine, to anyone whose power depended on keeping the masses ignorant, fearful, and dependent. So, the senses were declared non-existent. Anyone who claimed to perceive beyond the five was labeled mad, heretical, dangerous. The witch hunts were not just about persecuting women. They were about eradicating the folk traditions of energy healing, intuitive knowing, and direct communion with the unseen. And it worked. Within a few generations, most people forgot these senses even existed. They became atrophied, dormant, but not gone, never gone. You still have them, right now. You have simply been trained not to trust them. But you can reclaim them. You can reawaken the senses that perceive beyond the material. And when you do, you will realize that the world is far richer, far more interconnected, far more alive than the limited story you were told. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. And simply feel the space around you. Not with your physical sense of touch, but with your awareness. Can you feel the energy in the room? Can you sense where it is denser, lighter, moving, still? You can. You are doing it right now, even if your rational mind is dismissing it. This is the second Wildwood mystery. You are not limited to five senses. You are a multisensory being, capable of perceiving layers of reality that are invisible to the physical eyes, but undeniably present. And the moment you begin to trust these perceptions, the moment you stop dismissing your intuition, your gut feelings, your energetic awareness, you become unhideable from, you become unmanipulable, because you can feel the truth beneath the surface. You can sense deception before it is spoken. You can read the energetic signature of people, places, situations. This is why it was hidden. This is why you were taught it does not exist. Because perception is power, and they did not want you to have it. But you do. You always have. And now you know. The invisible is not invisible to you. It never was. You simply forgot how to see. But forgetting can be undone, and the reawakening has already begun. Trust what you feel. Trust what you sense. Trust the knowing that arises without explanation. This is your birthright. This is your natural state. This is the second mystery revealed. You are far more perceptive than they ever wanted you to know. Chapter 3. The third mystery. Death is not the end. You have been taught to fear death, to see it as the ultimate ending, the annihilation of everything you are. This fear is the cornerstone of control, because people who fear death can be controlled through the promise of avoiding it, through medicine, through religion, through insurance, through systems that claim to protect you from the inevitable. But the Wildwood Mysteries teach something radically different, something that has been known by every shamanic culture, every mystery tradition, every lineage of mystics who have directly explored the nature of consciousness. Death is not the end. It is a transition, a doorway, a return. You are not your body. You never were. You are consciousness, infinite, eternal, indestructible. And the body is simply the temporary vehicle through which consciousness experiences this particular dimension of reality. When the body dies, consciousness does not die. It cannot die. Because consciousness is not created by matter. It is the field from which matter arises. This is not belief. This is not religion offering comfort to the grieving. This is direct knowledge, confirmed by thousands of near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, past life memories, and the testimonies of shamans who journey to the afterlife and return. But this knowledge is suppressed, ridiculed, dismissed as wishful thinking or neurological malfunction. Because if people truly understood that death is not the end, if they knew that consciousness continues, that they have lived before and will live again, everything would change. The fear that drives consumerism would dissolve. The urgency to accumulate, to achieve, to prove yourself before time runs out, it would lose its grip. The religions that offer salvation in exchange for obedience would lose their power. The medical industry that profits from the terror of mortality would be exposed for what it is. You would live differently, more courageously, more authentically. Because the stakes would no longer be do this or be annihilated. The stakes would be, how do I want to experience this life, knowing that I am eternal? The ancient mystery schools taught this openly. Initiates underwent symbolic death rituals, deep meditations, vision quests, sensory deprivation, to directly experience the truth that consciousness exists beyond the body. They returned from these experiences transformed, fearless, free. The Egyptian mysteries, the Eleusinian mysteries, the shamanic initiations of indigenous cultures, all of them involved confronting death, passing through it, and discovering that what you are cannot be destroyed. But as the old ways were suppressed, this knowledge was buried. People were taught that death is a terrifying unknown, that what happens after is unknowable, that faith alone must sustain you through the fear. But it is not unknowable. It has been known, explored, mapped by countless travelers of consciousness throughout history, and their reports are remarkably consistent. Consciousness separates from the body. You find yourself still aware, still you, but no longer bound by physical limitation. You may see your body from above, see those around you, hear conversations. Then you are drawn toward light, toward a state of pure love, pure knowing. You encounter guides, beings of light, ancestors, aspects of your own higher consciousness. You review your life, not with judgment, but with understanding. You remember that you chose this life, that you came here to learn, to grow, to experience. And you realize that you will return, not to this same body, but to another life, another opportunity, another chapter in the infinite story of your eternal existence. This is not fantasy. This is the consistent testimony of those who have glimpsed beyond the veil, and it matches perfectly with what the mystery schools have always taught. You're not your name, your story, your personality. Those are temporary costumes worn by consciousness for a brief moment in eternity. The real you, the eternal you, is vast, infinite, indestructible. And when you truly know this, when it is not just a comforting idea, but a lived reality, fear loses its hold. You stop living small. You stop delaying joy. You stop playing safe because you're terrified of losing what you never truly had. A body that was always meant to be temporary. You begin to live fully because you understand that this life is not a test you might fail. It is an experience you came here to have, and when it is complete, you will return to the infinite, review what you learned, and choose the next adventure. This is the third wildwood mystery, and it is perhaps the most liberating of all. Death is not the end. It is not something to be feared. It is simply a transition, as natural as birth, as inevitable as the setting sun. And you are eternal. You have always been. You will always be. This is what they hid from you, because a population that fears death is easy to manipulate. But a population that knows they are eternal, unstoppable. You are not your body. You are not even your mind. You are consciousness itself, playing in the field of form, exploring the mystery of existence, knowing that no matter what happens, you cannot be destroyed. Breathe that in. Feel the relief of it. The freedom. You are eternal. You are safe. You are infinite. And death? Death is just the doorway home. Chapter 4. The Fourth Mystery. You agreed to forget now. We arrive at the mystery that may be hardest to accept, the one that, once understood, recontextualizes everything. You did not end up in this life by accident. You were not thrown randomly into a body, into a family, into a set of circumstances beyond your control. You chose this, all of it, not from the perspective of your current personality, your current awareness, but from the perspective of your soul, the higher, vaster, eternal aspect of your consciousness that exists beyond this single lifetime. And part of that choice was the agreement to forget. This is the fourth wildwood mystery, and it explains why waking up, why remembering, feels simultaneously like learning something new and recognizing something you have always known. Because you have always known. You simply agreed to forget so that the game of this life could be played fully. The mystery schools taught that physical incarnation is a form of voluntary limitation. The infinite consciousness that you truly are, unbounded, omniscient, eternal, chose to compress itself into the narrow perspective of a single human life, chose to forget its vastness so that it could experience contrast, challenge, growth. Think of it like an actor stepping into a role. For the duration of the play, the actor becomes the character, forgets, in a sense, that they are acting, because if they remained fully aware that none of it is real, the performance would lose its power. The emotions would be hollow. The stakes would be meaningless. But when the curtain falls, the actor remembers, oh, right, that was a role. I am not that character. I am the consciousness that played the character. This is what you are doing right now. You are playing the role of a human life. And you are playing it so fully, so convincingly, that you forgot you are playing it at all. But the forgetting was intentional, because if you remembered that you are infinite, that this life is temporary, that you chose every major element of it before you arrived, the challenges would lose their potency. The growth would be less profound. You came here to experience limitation so that you could transcend it. to experience separation so that you could remember unity, to experience fear so that you could discover courage, to experience powerlessness so that you could reclaim your power, and it is working. Even now, you're in the process of remembering, and that remembering, that awakening, is not a deviation from the plan. It is the plan. This is why the knowledge was hidden, not ultimately to keep you oppressed, but to ensure that the forgetting was thorough enough that the remembering would be meaningful. The mystery schools understood this. They called it the veil of forgetting. They taught that before birth, every soul passes through a river of forgetfulness. The ancient Greeks called it the river Lethe, so that memories of previous lives, of the soul's true nature, would be temporarily erased, not as cruelty, but as design, because the journey from forgetting to remembering is the entire point of incarnation. You did not come here to remain asleep. You came here to wake up, but waking up only has meaning if you were genuinely asleep first. So you agreed to the veil. You agreed to the forgetting. You agreed to be born into a world that would condition you, limit you, distract you from your true nature. And you did all of this knowing that at the appointed time you would begin to remember, that something would trigger the awakening, a book, a person, a crisis, a moment of grace. And here you are, triggered, awakening, remembering. This is not happening to you. This is happening as you. You are the author of this story. You wrote it before you arrived. And now you are living it, discovering what you already knew, but agreed to forget. This can feel overwhelming. It can feel like betrayal. Why would I choose this pain, this struggle, this confusion? But from the perspective of the soul, from the vantage point of eternity, even pain is valuable, not because it is good in itself, but because it catalyzes growth, because it forces you to reach deeper, to discover resources you did not know you had, to become more than you were. You did not come here for comfort. You came here for evolution. And every challenge you face is part of that design. This does not mean you should tolerate abuse or resign yourself to suffering. It means you can stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as a volunteer, someone who chose this experience, knowing it would be difficult, because the rewards, the growth, the wisdom, the expansion would be worth it. And now, as you remember, as the veil thins, you begin to access the knowing that guided you here. You begin to feel the presence of your higher self, the soul that is still connected to the infinite, whispering guidance, offering perspective, reminding you that you are never alone. This is the fourth mystery, and it changes everything. You are not lost. You are exactly where you chose to be. And the fact that you are remembering now means you are right on schedule. The game is not over, but you're beginning to see the board. And that changes how you play, no longer from desperation, but from curiosity, from the excitement of a soul who came here for adventure and is finally waking up to the truth of who they are. You agreed to forget, but you also knew you would remember. And that remembering, right now, in this moment, is the fulfillment of the agreement you made before you were born. Welcome back. You have been missed. And the real journey is just beginning. Chapter 5. The fifth mystery. The knowledge is returning, and so we arrive at the final mystery, the one that ties all the others together. the one that explains why now, at this moment in history, you are able to hear what was hidden for so long. The knowledge is returning, not because someone decided to release it, not because the gatekeepers suddenly became generous, but because the time has come, the cycles have turned, and humanity is ready, or rather must become ready, for what comes next. The ancient tradition spoke of ages, the Vedic yugas, the Mayan long count calendar, the precession of the equinoxes. Different names, but the same message. Time is not linear, it is cyclical, and we are at the turning point between ages. The age that is ending was one of separation, materialism, forgetting. The age that is dawning is one of unity, consciousness, remembering. And as one age dies and another is born, the veils that kept the knowledge hidden begin to dissolve. Not all at once, not in a single dramatic event, but gradually, persistently, unstoppably. This is why you are hearing this now. This is why ancient teachings are suddenly accessible, why mystical experiences are becoming more common, why people who never considered themselves spiritual are spontaneously awakening. The wildwood mysteries, the knowledge that was protected, encoded, hidden, are returning because they must, because humanity faces challenges that cannot be solved with the same level of consciousness that created them. And the only way forward is through remembering who and what we truly are. You are part of this, not as a passive observer, but as an active participant. You are one of the rememberers, one of the bridge walkers, one of those who incarnated at this exact time to hold the frequency of awakening, to embody the knowledge, to live as proof that another way is possible. This is not ego. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is recognition of purpose. You are here for a reason, and that reason is becoming clear. The old systems, the ones built on control, on separation, on the concealment of truth, are collapsing. Not because anyone is dismantling them, but because they cannot sustain themselves in the new frequency that is flooding the planet. And as they collapse, people are looking for answers, for meaning, for something real beneath the surface of the stories they were sold. And you are part of the answer, simply by waking up, by remembering, by living from the truth of the mysteries rather than the lie of limitation. This is the fifth and final wildwood mystery. The knowledge is not returning so that a chosen few can hoard it. It is returning so that all who are ready can remember, and in that remembering, transform not just themselves, but the collective. You do not need to become a teacher. You do not need to start a movement. You simply need to embody the truth, to live as someone who knows they are eternal, multi-sensory, powerful, sovereign, and your presence, your frequency, will do the rest, because reality is a vibrational field, and every person who remembers raises the baseline frequency, making it easier for the next person to awaken, and the next, and the next. This is the 100th monkey effect, the tipping point, the critical mass, and you are part of it. The mysteries were hidden to protect them, but now they are being revealed to liberate humanity, and you are the vessel through which that liberation flows. This is not pressure. This is recognition. You came here for this. You volunteered. And now, as you remember, you fulfill the purpose that has always been yours. The wildwood is not just a place. It is a state of consciousness. The wild, untamed, natural knowing that existed before civilization tried to contain it. And it is returning, not out there in some distant forest, but in you, in the wildness of your authentic self, breaking free from the cages of conditioning. Let it return. Let it rise. Let it roar through you with all the ferocity of a soul that remembers its power. The knowledge is here. The mysteries are revealed. And you are the living proof that the age of forgetting is ending. Welcome home, rememberer. The wildwood has been waiting for you. And the real magic begins now. You have walked through the 5 mysteries. But knowing them intellectually is not enough. You must live them, embody them, let them transform not just your understanding, but your entire way of being in the world. Reality is participatory. You are multisensory. Death is a doorway. You chose this life, and the knowledge is returning. These are not theories to be debated. They are truths to be lived. And as you live them, everything changes. The world does not become easier, but it becomes more meaningful, more rich, more alive. You are not who you thought you were. You are infinitely more. And the journey of remembering, of reclaiming your power, your perception, your eternal nature has only just begun. The wildwood mysteries are yours now, not to keep secret, but to embody, not to hoard, but to live. And in your living, you become the answer to a question humanity has been asking for millennia. What are we? Why are we here? What is possible? You are the answer, living, breathing, remembering. The knowledge was hidden, but it is hidden no longer. It is alive in you, and through you, it returns to the world. Go now, with the mysteries awake inside you, and watch as the wildwood within calls forth the wildwood without. The age of remembering has begun, and you are the proof